In the middle of Dorset County lies the village of Cerne Abbas. To get there you have to drive a long time on very small roads, so, picturesque as it is, I would not have planned to go there if it didn't have a slightly naughty secret. On the 4th of November 1694, it was here at St Mary's Church in the Dorset village of Cerne Abbas, where the churchwarden added 6 historically important words to his accounts book. He wrote, "For repairing ye giant, 3 shillings. That is about £50 in today's money, I'd reckon. And that is the earliest written record of a Chalk Hill figure, which is, together with the Uffington White Horse, one of the 2 most famous in the United Kingdom." After that first mention, our giant, and yes, you'll see it in a minute, shows up a number of times in the historic record. For example, complete with drawing and dimensions in the July 1764 edition of the Gentleman's Magazine, a monthly periodical which informed the London Club member about what was going on in the world of history, science and politics. So I started hunting around for an old copy of the 1764 year. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first go and have a look at what this is all about. A giant hill figure, a dating nightmare for archaeologists, an interpretation nightmare for historians, and arguably Britain's biggest penis. Bear with me. It is described in some detail on half a page, and a drawing is provided with all dimensions. Surely not, you will now say, in the rather prudish 18th century? And, aha, you might add, we now know what kind of gentleman's magazine that was. But let me assure you, that periodical was the epitome of respectability. It just seemed to pride itself on not beating about the bush. The earliest longer description was in the Royal Magazine in 1763, and the first detailed geometric documentation, including the less modest parts, was in that article of 1764. Interestingly, and this is particularly true for the Uffington White Horse, chalk figures that have been created thousands of years ago can really be appreciated in their full beauty only from the air. Eric van Däniken would have a lot to say about this, but perhaps it just shows that our ancestors were in many ways not as stupid as we sometimes think, and really could imagine how a 2-dimensional structure on a hillside would look as seen from above, from the perspective of the gods, as it were. So their creation is perhaps less mysterious than we might think, but their survival to this day and age is even more fascinating. You see, these chalk lines need regular cleaning. It's called scouring. If that is not done at least once every 5 to 10 years, the whole thing overgrows and becomes invisible. In the case of the Uffington White Horse, this procedure has been regularly carried out by the local villagers for the last 3,000 years. And the thing is, nobody has the faintest idea what the original purpose or symbolism of the figure was. That bit has long been lost in the mists of time. Have a look at Tom Scott's excellent video about the scouring of the White Horse, linked below and above. This very British trait to preserve nice old things with considerable effort has come down to us from the Iron Age, through the Roman period, the Anglo-Saxons, the Normans, right up to Generation TikTok. Why it is here we have not the faintest idea. Everything ever written about the origin and purpose of this figure is 100% pure guesswork, which I think gives it every chance of being actually true. One suggestion is, as there is no written record until the late 17th century, that it was put here at the end of the parliamentarian period to mock Ollie Cromwell. Another idea is that it might represent the Romano-British Hercules. I think I've also heard somewhere that it might be a Roman general named Nautius Maximus. But I think such a person never really existed, and Nautius Maximus is also a made-up name, I'm convinced. It's a bit like Silius Sodus or Boris Johnson. Actually, I might have made up that last theory myself. But that really doesn't make it less well-founded than the other two. Perhaps the most credible explanation is that it is some kind of pagan fertility symbol. Well, obviously. But what does that tell us? But very recently, in May 2021 to be precise, the situation changed dramatically, thanks to a joint effort by the National Trust and the University of Gloucestershire. Let me explain. There's only one truly scientific analysis done about the CERN giant, and that is the OSL dating done by the team of Philip Toms at the University of Gloucestershire. Chalk figures, at least the interesting ancient ones, are done by digging trenches along the outline, about 2 feet deep, and filling them with crushed and compacted chalk. This creates an extremely long-lasting bright white image, and it also means that the bottommost layer of chalk in those trenches has been isolated from any sunlight since the day it was first created. Optically stimulated luminescence dating makes use of the fact that certain crystalline minerals, quartz in this case, can form energy levels for their electrons, where their electrons get stuck once they are bumped up to them by radioactivity from the surrounding soil. If those electrons are later released by shining a laser at them, they release their energy in a flash of light with a very specific color. The more intense that flash is, the longer the crystal has been exposed to surrounding radioactivity. Exposure to sunlight resets that process within a matter of seconds. So by measuring the flash intensity, we can calculate how long ago a crystal has been hidden from sunlight, for example by having been put into a trench together with ground-up chalk. Using this method, the Gloucestershire team came up with a time window from 700 AD to 1100 AD. For the creation of the giant, and interestingly the most probable time of around 950 AD or so coincides pretty much exactly with the foundation of CERN Abbey. Which is a good moment to have a look at the beautiful remains of CERN Abbey. CERN Abbey, founded in 987 by Ethelmer the Stout, a descendant of King Ethelred I, was located just 500 meters from the giant, at a time when, as we can now assume, the figure already existed. Now what do we make of that? A pagan fertility sculpture coexisting, being co-created, with an institution the purpose of which was to bring people away from those beliefs and towards Christianity. Deeply mystifying. Perhaps the monks in those early days of Christianity were more laid back about this kind of thing than we think, or perhaps they had less control over the people of the village than they wished. A short walk from the graveyard gate we find St. Augustine's Well. There was a chapel over the well which has been destroyed with most of the other abbey buildings when, after the dissolution in 1539, the site was essentially used as a quarry for many buildings we now see in the village. Otherwise, it could be almost unchanged. When you go down there, you feel as if you've moved back in time by 1,000 years. The absence of any record about the giant before the year 1694, when repairs to the figure were described by St. Mary's churchwarden, has been, among other theories, attributed to it having been overgrown for a period before that time. This adds another mystery which I have not found discussed anywhere. If there is no record and it was overgrown, it est practically gone, then how could it be found again and so meticulously cleared and, what is more, without any record of that particular process?
The more you study it, the more mysterious it all becomes. Sadly, the one place where we might have found a lot of written down thoughts on all of this, the library at Cerne Abbey, has been destroyed at the dissolution of the monasteries, in this case in 1539, on the orders of that Tudor maniac. But perhaps not all is lost. Remember, those would have been incredibly valuable manuscripts. They weren't just thrown out. They would have been gathered up by collectors. They would have ended in private collections in Oxford, in Cambridge, in London. Who knows? This is a task for those historians who like to nose through old manuscripts in the Bodleian Library. Have a go and try and find if there's something written in the record about the Cerne giant. Meanwhile, we can just look and wonder, and that in itself makes it well worth a visit.